Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order and welcome everybody to the Ag Policy Committee this morning. One of our last meetings, probably. We may have some informational ones on things after Easter, but it's been a good run on the Policy Committee this year. Do we have any minutes? We have the minutes for March 22nd. Representative Mahoney, have you had a chance to say they're good or not good?
I believe they are just fine, sir.
Thank you, sir. All in favor of the minutes of March 22nd, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion's approved and the minutes are approved. We have a couple of, the department policy bill up this morning, and then an informational hearing on a bill I had that was a little bit late. But let's take up the House File 3487. Oh, I'm sorry, 4133, my apology. House File 4133. And I'm going to stay here and just conduct the meeting from here. I will move House File 4133 be referred to the Committee on Taxes. And there is a DE amendment, and I would move that, the DE1 amendment. Any comment, discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the DE1 say aye.
Aye.
Disapprove, same sign. The motion is approved. We'll be working off of the DE1 amendment this morning. Mr. Sullivan, again, I'd like to call on you to hit the highlights of the bill. Been a few changes, so Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Chair and members, yes, I'll focus on the differences between the bill as introduced and the DE amendment that's before members and was just adopted. Section 1 was in the bill as introduced, but sections 2, beginning on the bottom of page 1, through section 6 that ends on page 4, members will recognize these sections from Representative Swedzinski's House File 3472. On the bottom of page 4, this is a new section that was not in the bill as introduced. And if members look on page 5, the main change that happens here, this is the noxious weed law. Excuse me. Language is eliminated on lines 5.5 to 5.7 from current law that say for each claim for weed control against public land, that claim, before it's paid by the public entity in charge of that land, it must be first approved by the Commissioner of Agriculture. And then section 8, members will also recognize it was not in the bill as introduced, but it's from Representative Munson's House File 3374 and pertains to non-commercial pesticide applicator fees for certain MnDOT contractors. The next sections on page 5 were in the bill as introduced and were described by Ms. Place during our previous meeting on the bill. The same on the page 6 and through page 7, the new food handler license category for custom exempt meat and poultry processors. That continues through 9 and 10. Page 11 is language that was also in the bill as introduced pertaining to egg and milk storage and shelf life. There is a small change on lines 11.14 to 11.15 just to clarify the department's intent that the functioning bulk tank requirement applies to the farm. So a milk hauler could only pick up milk from a farm if that farm's bulk tank is in proper working order. There was a little bit of ambiguity before, and that's been resolved in the DE. The bottom, page 11 then, it was in the bill as introduced, as is the language on pages 12, 13, 14, 15. These all have to do with the bioeconomy incentive payment programs. Same on 16. The bottom of page 16 was in the bill as introduced. Change starts the several changes to programs administered by the Rural Finance Authority. Page 17 is the beginning farmer income tax credit program. There's a small change from the bill as introduced on the bottom of 17. It's on 17.27, 17.28. It's clarification around the financial management curriculum requirement for participating beginning farmers The change, instead of saying that the farmer participates in a financial management program, it would say that the farmer is enrolled in or has completed within 10 years of their first year of farming that financial management course requirement. Then continuing on page 18, 19, these again were in the bill as introduced and pertain to Rural Finance Authority loan programs. On the bottom of 19, there's a change from the bill as introduced. This has to do with the disaster recovery loan program administered by the Rural Finance Authority. You'll see on lines 19.27 to 19.30, this is eligibility criteria for loans. The department in the bill as introduced had proposed eliminating item 2, II on 19.28, the language saying due to confirmed presence of highly pathogenic avian influenza. The DE retains that language, but then adds as a third item on line 19.30, the market disaster or emergency language recommended by the commissioner in the Department of Agriculture. Then pages 20 and the top of 21 are the same as the bill as introduced. Then section 35 is new on page 21. That's Representative Backer's House File 2827. And then the repealer is the same as the bill as introduced.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Any questions on what he just went over from members? Hearing none, let's move into the amendments then. We have 4 amendments before us today. And let's see. Let's go to the A2 amendment first. Members, the A2 amendment deals with a feasibility study by the Department of Ag. And Ms. Place, I believe you're here. Would you care to go over the amendment for us, please? Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. As I mentioned earlier this week, the first section of the bill where we included feasibility studies for energy conservation projects within the Ag BMP loan program didn't exactly do what our policy choice wanted to. So we worked on this language to insert it into the Rural Finance Authority programming. This would come out of the Rural Finance Loan Revolving Fund. And we don't think that there will be a great impact to that fund. These studies, again, are about $25,000 a piece. And this would allow municipalities to be able to do an energy feasibility study to then leverage financing for a conservation energy project.
Thank you very much. Any questions? If not, all those in favor of the A2 amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion is adopted. Thanks, Ms. Place. A3 is up next. The A3 amendment is, I believe, the same as the motion we passed off the floor the other day, Representative Hamilton's data practices bill, and they'd like to have it in this bill as well. So it's the same language as the bill passed off the House, and we were asked to add this to the House policy bill as well. Comments, questions? Seeing none, or Representative Salk, you have the look on your face of why.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe a little more, and I'll claim that I'm probably the most naive person sitting here. So why would we put duplicates of things across different statutes?
I guess in some places there more is better, just different ways to get something passed. There's nothing devious here, just to have it in another place. If a bill may be vetoed, I suppose it's
Okay,
gonna
Mr.
be
Chair,
here
I
as
think
well.
you gave me the key
Yeah.
element of the why, which is so that it has more than one opportunity to be enacted.
You're a fast learner.
Thank you.
So anyway, any other comments on this language? The data that was, I think, passed 126 to nothing off the House floor earlier this week. Seeing none, all in favor of the A3 amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, again, same sign. And the motions passed in the A3 amendment is also included. A1 amendment is up next, and this, I believe, is Representative Johnson's amendment, so go ahead, Representative.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to move the A1 amendment. I'll start by saying that I think everyone here knows that I thoroughly enjoy this committee, and one of the reasons I do, both this and the Ag Finance Committee, is that this is a committee that seeks to remove partisan politics from a topic that's really important to Minnesota, and that's agriculture. And that's something that, you know, all of us are deeply interested in and concerned about. This amendment seeks to remove language that does the other, and that really seeks to insert politics into the world of agriculture by asking that the nitrogen rule be approved by the legislature. There's a partisan body, we've talked about, we all know that, and that's acceptable, but to insert partisan politics into how farmers are farming, and to insert partisan politics into the kind of efforts we make to have clean drinking water. I want to repeat that. Clean, safe drinking water, a fundamental need that every human being has, I think is the wrong way to govern. I really do. I also question what this means for farmers, because you know what? I see farmers really as partners in improving water quality. I see farmers in my region adopting the best management practices that are envisioned or proposed in this rule. And most farmers are doing that. I think it's the way they farm. I think particularly in the wellhead management area of St. Peter, which is affected by this rule, that there's a lot of work between the city and the farmers in that area. They actually share some equipment to help farmers adopt those best management practices who are farming in those coarse soils from which St. Peter draws the water. So I think this section of law is wrong for farmers. I also think it's fundamentally wrong for families in Minnesota. And I'll return to the situation in St. Peter. St. Peter is a city of about 12,000 people. And I'll tell the story a little more broadly than I told the other day in the Capitol. In 2011, they decided finally that this was, or years shortly before 2011, they decided that they had to deal with the nitrates in their city water system. The water drains, they draw their water from coarse soils, just the sorts of soils that is addressed with this amendment, or with this part of with the nitrogen rule. And so they, as a city, decided to take that on because they absolutely have to provide clean water for the citizens. And so in 2011, they put in a reverse osmosis system. Consequently, since then, everybody in St. Peter is paying $2 per 1,000 gallons of water a month, additional funding from that family to assure that they can have clean water in the city. I talked to the city, the public works director. He said most families would use about 5,000 gallons a year. If you're cautious and conservative, a small family could get by maybe on 4,000. But he says most families are what would be typical would be 5,000 gallons. That means every family in St. Peter, the average family in St. Peter, is paying another $10 a month to clean up the water. And there's general consensus. I can't cite studies, but I've never heard anyone suggest other causes for the challenge other than the farming in those coarse soils. People just understand. It came up, I mentioned in the town hall, and one of the farmers who farms in that area, you know, he understood it completely, and it has adapted his farming to that. But the point is there's a real cost to that. $10 a month is a lot of money for those families, but they have to do it in order to have clean water. In the meantime, as part of this story, I think, too, is the cooperation that's you know, St. Peter's quiet about this, as are it's kind of understood and trying to work together with the agricultural community to make sure that everything is right. The other example I'll give where the families are neighbors to what has been a family farm for my family up in Wadena County and just south of Hubbard County, where there's a lot of coarse soils as well, and this rule would apply. And I think those voices are not being heard as well, because my neighbors up there, and these, you know, my dad established this farm in the late 1970s, so I've spent a lot of time up there. There's talk about our wells. There's conversations. I don't bring up those conversations. I'd rather talk about trees and fishing when I'm up there, but they come to bore over a cup of coffee. And those families are deeply concerned about their wells. As I mentioned, one of the gentlemen who does some work on our place, he has watched the nitrates in his well, his private well, increase to over 10 now, and he attributed it to the expansion of farming right near his place. He's obviously disappointed on many levels about that, but that impacts his family and countless other families that have their private wells up there. This is clean drinking water, and he's talked about, my kids can't drink out of the tap anymore. And you know, up there, people live there. One of the things they treasure is the pristine area that they live in, and yet their drinking water is bad. So I asked this committee to accept this amendment, and I'm going to challenge my friends, and I consider you friends and colleagues on the GOP side of the aisle, to take a step back from the partisan politics, to do this right. Rulemaking for items like water quality, that's how we do things in Minnesota, and it's the right way to do it. And I'm confident that the commissioner has made it real clear that he will have extensive conversations, do everything practical to make sure that this rule would be implemented in a way where farmers are supported to, again, do best management practices in those core soils to protect the drinking water of Minnesotans. Thank you.
Thanks, Representative Johnson. Comments, questions on the amendment? Representative Backer.
Thank you, Chair. That is, taking a phrase from my friend across the table, Representative Johnson, that is why we're doing this, is so we can do it right. What's wrong with the process right now is we have agencies who is creating laws. That is not what an agency is there to do. It's to implement laws. It is our responsibility to create laws, and that's what the legislative process is. Political, this is so far from political because it is important that we hear from all voices. I agree with you, Representative Johnson. We need to hear from all voices. And that's why this needs to go in the legislative process, and not just the feedback that I have received from people across the state is they don't believe their voice is being heard. You know, it's really simple. If a farmer is putting too much nitrates on the soil, they're not farming next year because they're broke. Okay, it's really a simple process. So So I want to, and I appreciate your comment. I hear your passion, Representative Johnson. But A, this isn't political. B, we are the bodies that enact laws. That is our responsibility. If we don't want to take that responsibility, that's up to individuals. I take that seriously when I am a representative. So that's why we need this in there. We need us to do our job and not have the executive branch in making law. They're there to interpret law, and that's, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members.
You folks sitting up in front, did you care to testify? We usually don't do this at policy meetings, but we'll give you 3 minutes, okay? You want to testify on this amendment? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I'll make it brief. My name is Josh Reinitz. I'm a farmer from Henderson, Minnesota. My family and I raise organic vegetables, fruits, hay, grains, livestock, and maple syrup on about 50 acres. So there are many other types of farms out there than nitrogen applying farms. I'm not one of them. I'm a land stewardship project member. I did want to speak about this Section 35 of the Omnibus Bill. We do have polluted water. There's no doubt that there are many polluted and threatened drinking water sources in rural Minnesota. I live on the Minnesota River at Henderson, and I have 3 small children. My well, when it was drilled to 323 feet deep, and for now I do have clean water. My dad's well next door is 170 feet deep and is no longer potable. Nitrates are a part of that. So we think rural water quality is critical to viable rural communities. The MDA is charged with protecting rural community health. They are using the Groundwater Protection Act to protect rural water and communities. It is appropriate and reasonable. They're working with farmers in drafting the rule. Including this in the omnibus bill jeopardizes our rural water quality and is going in the wrong direction. There are good things in this bill as well that are jeopardized by including this provision. So please don't take away the authority of the MDA to protect my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reinitz. And I would just add that this does not take away their authority. It brings back whatever they come up with for approval by this body. And the other thing I would mention, and thank you for your testimony, sir, is that we've heard some from farm groups that the timing of this, it's going to be released middle of May when we're pretty busy here or winding up. And the final rule would be released in December before we come back. We have heard from folks saying that they would like to have it come back for final approval or oversight by the legislature before it would go into effect. So not speaking for Representative Backer, but I think that's part of the reason as well, that it would come back for a review. Representative Mahoney.
I think Representative Bly was first.
Oh, sorry, Representative Bly.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a good example of how we can empower the department to really hear people. I mean, the testimony that we want to hear everybody. And I would second Representative Johnson's argument that having this oversight by the legislature does make it more political. If we have a majority on either side and they're the ones that are making decisions, rather than an agency that I think is charged with protecting, is carrying out the Groundwater Act, I think it makes sense that we don't interfere with that. I think the department has been very good at trying to develop ways that are not harmful but proactive with the water certification process, where farmers can, in a sense, put in place best practices that will make it so they don't have to necessarily be subject to firmer regulations because they're already doing the right thing. I also wanted to say that I'd like to have a roll call on this vote when we come to a vote.
Okay, roll call has been called for, and we will have a roll call. Any other comment on the amendment? Representative Mahoney.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the amendment, one of the problems if we don't implement something like this, well, I'll start at a different place. As we sit around this table, we have teachers, we have business people, we have probably lawyers and real estate agents and everybody else, and construction workers. We're not scientists. And to make that relatively clear, 2019, we had a bill up on the House floor, an amendment that dealt with climate change, and which I found it a relatively, one of those moments that in our legislative history we all kind of remember as we move through this, our careers here. And it was unique, because every member of the GOP caucus at that time got up and said something to the effect, I'm a small business owner, I'm not a scientist, I can't vote on climate change. I'm a farmer. I'm not a scientist, I can't vote on climate change. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a whatever, I can't vote on climate change. So, we are not scientists here. We are common people that have developed an ability to sit through multiple boring hearings to come up with some ideas and put into law, to the best of our knowledge, the principles and the policies that we care to see our state do. And our state hires scientists. Department of Ag hires scientists to make the rules based on science, not based on what we hear in a coffee shop or an anecdotal comment that we hear from a farm group or a farm corporation. And to say that they are partisan and they are out to get farmers is an affront to state employees. It's an affront to scientists. It's an affront to science as a basis for law and policy. And for, as a construction worker, to come and make comments on a scientific-based policy is, you know, I can do all the reading. I sometimes can't pronounce all the words, but I can do all the reading that I need to do. And I spend about 1,800 hours a year on legislative work, and much of it is reading reports that would put a normal person to sleep. So I have some ideas, but I'm not a scientist. I don't know all the details. I don't understand all the details, but I try to, and I ask the questions of that. This program has been put together by nonpartisan state employees to put together a program that is best suited to help the people of the state of Minnesota. Not only us evil, rotten, terrible, horrible metro people that is so prominent when I go out into greater Minnesota. Because I go out into greater Minnesota, I put 5,000 miles on my car last summer. I went out into greater Minnesota to learn about farming. Because this is it's an unusual place for a metro legislator to spend time in, on the Ag Committee. But I felt that this is important, and so I did that last summer. So this is not really a metro area conversation, because we get our water from the Mississippi, and we spend a lot of money cleaning it up. But I sit on the Jobs Committee, and for years, the Public Facilities Authority was in the preview of the Jobs Committee. Hundreds of millions of dollars for small towns, whether they had 125 people in it or they had 25,000 people in it. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars to clean up the water. And they have come to us in the last few years. They still stop in my office now. They don't have enough money for these small towns in greater Minnesota to clean the nitrogens out of the water. It's reverse osmosis. St. Peter's getting by cheap at $10 a family per month. Very cheap. So if you have a small town in your district of 500 or 700 or 1,000, they will be coming to you saying, I need a new reverse osmosis program. And you're going to look at them and say, you know, we spend $300 million a year and we can't spend any more. So you're going to have to put one in privately in your own home. Good for the plumbers in the neighborhood, not good for public policy. I think this amendment, which brings it back, gets them started on this, and still allows us to take a look at it, is a good idea. And it puts the onus on the Department of Ag to actually go out and get public comment. We have a problem in the state of Minnesota. And we can fix it, the department can fix it, or some hotshot lawyer that's trying to make a lot of money can go around and get cities to join in a class action suit, and they will win. The only reason they didn't win in Iowa is because Iowa fired all the people on that board by legislative fiat and replaced them with people who would not follow through with that lawsuit. And if you think it's going to be, this is going to be, this bill, this delete all amendment, is going to be fiscally correct, when the lawyer gets done, it will be a very, very big dollar figure. And for all my rural colleagues that kind of hate us people in the metro area, remember, we pay for it. We pay $1.40. We send in $1 and we get 60 cents back. You send in $1, you get $1.40. You don't do something on nitrogens and do it quick, you'll be coming to us for $1.50 rather than $1.40. So this is a good amendment. I'm glad somebody called, I'm glad Representative Bly called a roll call on it. I think it's really important, and if we vote this amendment down, we are just looking for more money for rural communities.
Thanks, Representative. Follow-up, Representative Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to refer to a comment made by Representative Backer. The department is not creating laws. Rather, it's creating a rule, and there's a significant difference. Actually, what they're doing, as the testifier identified, they're implementing the Groundwater Protection Act. That's the law. And this is the way we do rulemaking in the state. I'm unaware of where there's legislative approval of rules that relate to quality of water, and there may be, so I'll suggest that rarely, if ever, has there been legislative approval. And so this amendment, again, is an opportunity to remove that section of the law and to fundamentally keep politics out of the quality of our drinking water.
Seeing no further comments, the clerk will call the roll. The chair votes no.
Thacker,
No.
Bennett,
No.
Bly,
Yes.
Daniels,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kunesh Badin,
Yes.
Lewick,
No.
Mahoney, Mariani, Miller,
No.
Munson,
No.
Nornis, Pearson,
Nope.
Poppy,
Yes.
Huston,
No.
Sauk,
Yes.
The roll call is 6 in favor and 10 against. The amendment is not passed. Representative Mahoney, I like you, but, and I appreciate you came out to Fairmont this past summer. There was an event out there, and that was very much appreciated, and I want to say thanks for that. I couldn't make it down that day, but thank you for that and for taking an interest. Representative.
Mr. Chair, I didn't only go to Fairmont, I went up to the city north of Alexandria, I went down to Granite Falls, I went down to Worthington, I went down to Laverne, I went down to Houston, I think it's called Houston. I sometimes get the names mixed up, but it's an important piece for we in the metro area to understand what are the issues that face farmers. My family has just sold its century-and-a-half-old farm because no one wanted to farm it any longer. And there's several grandchildren out there that had the opportunity, but they said, why should I? I mean, it's a hard life. It's 320 acres. I can't make a living at it. And it's sad for me to lose that.
Yeah.
I spent my summers on the farm, and I feel bad about that being gone, but, and I get to Morton Redwood Falls quite regularly. So, yes, I appreciate the mention. Thank you.
And again, this does not do away with the rule that brings it back for approval. Representative Bly.
Thank you, Chair. So I really appreciated Representative Mahoney's comments. It does make me worried that, you know, I don't want to argue with you about whether or not we're taking away the department's authority, but I think when we interfere in the sense that we're gonna try to have the final say on the rule, and the effect that will have on the attitudes of people who live in rural Minnesota about farmers. And I'm very concerned that there's a growing feeling, I see this in my own district, that farmers don't care, that they're not interested in keeping the water clean. And I hope when we have, if this does pass and it becomes law, that we really make a real effort to hear from all sides, and that farmers really come forward and show that they, and I believe farmers do, and I talk to farmers, and many of the farmers actually are willing to follow this rule. So it concerns me that we're setting a tone that says, you know, we can't touch farmers, or farmers shouldn't be interfered with. They shouldn't be asked to do anything different. Even though the reality is, I think farmers are doing things differently. But it puts in place a message that I fear for farmers and agriculture. So I think we are far better off letting the agency be in charge of this rule and the implementation of it. And Also, talking with some farmers in my district, it's not that drastic a rule. It's not that powerful a rule. Many folks who care a great deal about water quality say it's not enough. It doesn't go far enough. And I just, I think there are fewer and fewer farmers out there. There may be even less. It causes me great concern. And I hope that when, again, if we do go this route, that we're very careful about the way that we talk with others who have great concerns about their water quality in rural Minnesota.
Thanks, Representative. Without stopping too long, farmers do care. There's a lot of new techniques that are working as we speak, and that's all I'll say. Last amendment on the agenda is the A4 amendment. To that amendment, Representative Poppy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to move the A4 amendment and just describe it a little bit. Certainly, this discussion is full of a lot of emotion and a lot of concern. And so the amendment I'm bringing forward would remove the section that seeks approval, but it clarifies what our role truly is, which is oversight. And our role of being able to oversee what happens might need some opportunity here to clarify what we would expect. And so this amendment would expect that the department would publish in the state register the rule by May 7th. That's a date that it gets done every Tuesday, I guess. So May 7th is the date. And they certainly could publish it before then if it's possible to do. It just gets published at certain times. So anyway, that's the date for that. That we have heard from the corn growers, I think Farm Bureau, they had indicated that they would like to see a longer comment period. I think we would agree that the timing is not the best for a rule to come forward for the people who are going to be planting and involved in spring season activities, farming activities. So to provide for at least a 60-day public comment period, that may be able to be longer, but that we're saying that at least 60 days is the required amount for comment period, that during that comment period, that the commissioner must hold at least 10 listening sessions. I think it's important to have listening sessions to have that opportunity for feedback, for acknowledging what the rule is and understanding where people are coming from. So, and to also have those listening sessions in every region of the state, but also to have at least one that's internet-based, so that people might have an opportunity to do it remotely if they're not able to actually attend. And then under subdivision 2, that the commissioner published the interactive GIS maps. And I know that that's already available, but I'd like to make sure that as much as possible to publicize that so people now can start, by April 15th, they can start to go online, they can see so that they're prepared for the rule when the rule comes out. Because then I think the comments that will be made will be pertinent, and they will have been able to already identify how they are impacted, if they are impacted. So I think, one of the issues on the approval issue that I personally have is that our role as legislators is to provide oversight. The department has done what they legally can do, and that is rulemaking. And that is no different from any other agency. And my concern is that this amendment is bigger than this one rule. This would be going down a different path than has been done in the past. And when we do that, I think we are messing with what is the role for the agency and is the role of the legislative body. And I'm sure that I'm not going to convince anyone differently in my speaking today. But I do want to caution us that we are looking long-term and how this will impact things differently in the future if we would make this adjustment and ask for legislative approval on a rule. And I think, I grew up in a farm outside of Houston, Minnesota, so I thought Representative Mahoney said he was in Houston. That's my hometown, my home area, which is in the southeasternmost county in Minnesota. So when you look at that map, that purple map, there's a, I live in that's a beautiful part of the state. It's a beautiful part of the region, and there's forests there, there's hills, there are rivers, streams. It's lots of farming. Lots of farming gets done there. And the farmers who I think are doing what they're doing in order to make money, as Representative Backer said, are also able to do things, and they understand that they need to take care of their own families and their neighbors. And I want farmers to stand tall, to be affirmed that they are the good farmers that are good stewards, are doing things right. They should be proud and they should stand tall. And I do worry that sometimes we might seem as though we're challenging farmers in this, for people to think as I'm raising this amendment that they might think that I'm against farmers or challenging farmers. And I am further away from that than you can possibly imagine, because I think that by us saying that the good farmers should stand tall and they should be approving, be willing to go through this rulemaking process and be a participant and be able to do what they need to do, asking for some guidance and some borders around what is expected. But I think farmers deserve that. I think that they deserve to know that they can stand tall and they can do what they need to do, and that we recognize that. And I share some of the concerns that maybe have been raised about city versus rural. And I'm not talking about metro cities versus rural. I'm talking about small cities versus farmers. And I have experienced that in my own district, and maybe some of you have. We've had luckily now we have the opportunity for schools to be able to build, and farmers aren't as dramatically impacted by that. We've had situations where in the past it's been a real battle to get a school to be able to build a new school, to have bond referendums, because people start pitting that battle between rural and city, the small towns. And I think I don't want that to continue, and I don't want this to be another one of those areas where they feel as though, gosh darn it, it's those farmers. And those farmers that are making the good decisions and doing what's right, they can abide by this rule as it will come forward. And they deserve to be able to stand tall and to be able to do that. And I think this is a common sense approach. I think that nothing about what the department has done is illegal. They're following the process. They're doing what they need to do. And our role as legislators is to provide oversight. And that's what I'm asking for us to do. It would remove the approval part of the Section 35, but it would increase what the expectations are. And I just, again, I want us to, maybe just take one moment and think about long-term how this could impact us. And again, like I said, I'm probably sure that I don't change any votes in any people's minds, but I want to just issue that word of caution and to let farmers know that I stand with them and I support them, and I think that they too should stand tall, that they are doing the good farmers who are good stewards, who understand that good, clean drinking water is important to them and their families and their neighbors. We need to recognize that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. I agree with nearly everything you said there. And I would add that the departments, any departments here, are given their authority by this body. And there's been talk over the years of having all rulemaking come back here to this body, but that would be cumbersome. But in this case, that is what, at least so far, the majority of this committee has asked for. And Representative Poppy, on line 1.5 of your amendment, you say no later than May 7th. Now, we were told it was going to be May 15th or so. Do you have word that they can have it out by that time, Representative?
That's a good question, Mr. Chair. Not necessarily, but I think that they should have it out by May 7th. I think that, I mean, I had understood it would be early May, so I don't.
Ms. Place, any official word on when it may be released?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we have not formally chosen a date yet, so I guess this would force us to have it done by May 7th.
Can you do it?
Mr. Chair, members, our staff is writing around the clock, so we hope we could.
Okay. That's a good political answer. Thank you. I don't know where to go with this. I talked earlier with Representative Poppy and asked if she would be willing to split the amendment. I like the things you have in here, except, of course, the deletion. And I had an amendment drawn up, but it was too late, so I can't offer that because we agreed on that. But just would ask Representative again your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm personally not interested in splitting the amendment, but I don't serve on your side of the aisle. But I would say, because I continue to be concerned about the approval versus oversight. Our role is oversight, and I think that this provides oversight. You know what, we are a legislative body that's in session, for a short period of time, but we all know that we do work throughout the entire year. So nothing in this would prevent us from having meetings. Ag policy can have a meeting, ag finance could have a meeting. We could continue to have oversight throughout the summer and fall and have a meeting. And maybe, I guess I was hoping if it comes out by May 7th that we would have another meeting. So ag policy could actually get a presentation about the rule, and that would be a public legislative hearing. And then we could have another one this fall. So when it is moving through. But so anyway, I think that we can have oversight, and we should, and that's our role. And I think people should demand that we have oversight of agencies and of laws that come into place or rules that are being drafted and come into place. But so if you're asking for my permission to split it, I will not be giving you permission to do it, but if you would so choose, that is your prerogative, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. And having heard that, I will ask Mr. Sullivan if I could split the amendment between line 1.3 and 1.4 and offer from 1.4 and down.
Mr. Chair and members, I think to accomplish your intent, there would need to be a change to the command on line 3. Right now, what it proposes to do is to eliminate section 35 and replace it with the proposed language, but in order to keep section 35 and add this language, I think line 1.3, whether the amendment is divided or not, would need to be modified to read page 21 after line 28 insert.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Any questions on that? So line 1.3 would read page 21 after line
28.
Line 20?
28.
28, my apologies. So it'd read delete section 35 and insert after line 28, following page 21 on line 1.3. Comments on that proposal? Representative Bly?
I would just call for a roll call when we go through these.
Okay. Roll call has been called for, and there will be a roll call. Any other comments on the amendment? Representative Mahoney?
And this is likely to be a question for staff. If you retain the language on line 26, shall not adopt water resource protection requirements of subdivision 2, are we taking away the authority for the department to do anything that's being required in this amendment? And here is where I come from with this. At one time, we had something called a fight over waterless urinals in this state. And there was a we prohibited them and then asked the department to study them. And unfortunately, at the end of session, after there was, we had to wait till the next year. Actually, I think it was the next year, and I asked for that study, and they said, well, you prohibited us from doing anything on waterless urinals, so we can't study it. So are we doing the same thing by prohibiting on line 26? Are we prohibiting the balance of this amendment?
And you're talking about line 26 of the original bill on page 21, correct?
I'm looking at the DE amendment where it says on page 21, line 26, the commissioner shall not adopt water resource protection requirements.
Okay.
So if we are prohibiting them from doing anything with that, are we also, does the department come back and say, by law, we can't do anything on this water regulation, which is
Sullivan.
required in this other amendment?
Mr. Chair and Representative Mahoney, I think the A4 amendment as amended in conjunction with the DE would not conflict in that it would require the department to continue with the rulemaking process and to publish notice of intent to adopt in the state register and provide notice to the legislative committees. But then with the language that you referenced in the DE that prohibits adoption of water resource protection requirements without legislative approval, there would be roughly from May 7th to the end of the legislative session, 2 weeks or so, that the legislature could decide to approve the proposed rule. And if it didn't, then the rule would not take effect because of the language you referenced in the DE. So I don't think the two conflict. I think they would work together.
I'll take you at your word. But my experience has been. And Mr. Chair?
Yes.
You could hold those meetings, those legislative hearings after session that Representative Poppy talked about, would give me another excuse to spend some time out in greater Minnesota.
Sounds good. Sounds good. A good point raised, but I think Mr. Sullivan has answered that point. So we will continue on with the roll call of, so whose amendment is it? Is it mine or Representative Poppy's? Do you want it? Representative Poppy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm okay with the boundaries around what, what we're asking for them to do. I think I was now confused a little bit by Representative Mahoney's questioning, but because what we're expecting is for them to go through the entire process.
Yes.
Right, so the rule as it gets approved, or as it comes out, May 7th, and the 60 days at least of comment period, all of that's going to be happening. So there's no approval or disapproval that would happen when it immediately comes out May 7th. Is that
That's my
correct?
understanding, and to me, the whole process is going to play out. They'll come out with their final rule in December is what
Right.
what they talked about. Yeah. Again, we're not trying to stop what the department is doing. Time out.
Okay.
Having heard from higher-ups to my left here, we actually have to vote on two things here. One is to vote on the change, and then one to vote on the changed amendment if that were to
Makes
pass.
sense.
So, again, I
So-
think we're clear on that. Representative Poppy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So do we get to vote on my original amendment?
We can.
Or can you not? Because then it's already, it would be taken.
Yeah, when I split the amendment, that means we don't vote on your original amendment.
Okay, but we'll vote on two, but the first, okay, I think I understand. Mhm. I think we'll have three votes, actually, then.
If you want to vote on your amendment, we'll have to withdraw my motion first, which I will, if you want to vote on your amendment in its entirety.
Yes, I would
Okay.
like to do that.
Okay, I will withdraw my motion to separate the amendment here. We'll go back to the original A4 amendment, and I believe we've talked about it long enough, unless there are further questions. Representative, would you call for a roll call as well?
Sure.
Okay. Roll call has been asked. There will be a roll call. The chair votes no.
Backer,
No.
Bennett. No. Bly,
Yes.
Daniels. No. Johnson,
Yes.
Knesh Badin. Lewick,
No.
Mahoney. Mariani, Miller,
No.
Munson,
No.
Nornis,
No.
Pearson,
No.
Poppy,
Yes.
Austin,
No.
Sauk.
Yes.
The roll call vote on the motion, the Poppy motion is 6, or is that 5? I'm sorry, 5 in favor and 10 against. The amendment does not become adopted. I think conferring with staff, we're going to wait on offering any further changes to that amendment. So we have gone through the amendments. The bill is, as it stands, as amended. Any further discussion on the bill as amended? The DE1 amendment with amendments. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this is a good bill, except for Section 35, and I assume I voted for all the policy bills that I've had before me. At least I think I have, but today I won't be, and because as I tried to make the point, this is our drinking water. This is drinking water, quality of drinking water that's contaminated to the point where our children, our babies, can't drink it. And I just want to applaud Representative Poppy's explanation of what this really means for farmers. Because the farmers that farm in that wellhead protection area in Nicollet County, they're darn good farmers. And they do those things, and they're engaged in that. And we've got a lot of farmers who are partners in this. And but all farmers need to be involved in that. And we've got to get after the nitrates in our water. And agriculture needs to be part of that solution. I think agriculture is very ready, just as we heard from the corn growers, from the Farm Bureau, when they testified on this a couple of weeks ago. So it's I'm not pleased to vote no, but I shall vote no on the bill.
Thank you, Representative. Any other comments? Representative Stout, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm so troubled by the fact that we are casting aside the product of basic rulemaking. I know that there's great concern about too much government having run roughshod over people in what they would like to do in an endeavor of their life. Rulemaking, actually, I think, and boy, some historians should step in, but I think rulemaking was a product of trying to make government more streamlined. more efficient, and also more research-based as opposed to emotion-based. I think we can see a time, if this becomes the way we're going to make these decisions, is that the laws we live by are going to be a function of a head count. So we're going to make decisions on whether we should have a certain speed limit, or in this case, a suggested practice of farming. And I will tell you that I remember distinctly the product of this particular rule as being the way my dad farmed, 1954 and forward from that. This is management of the usefulness of the fertilizers you put in. And as been testified by everybody here is, well, finances will kick in. But I think the guidance of intellect and the guidance of good research actually assists in making those kinds of decisions. And for us to come running roughshod because we can, because we've got the head count, is to me, just the most inefficient way of having public decision-making. So I just have to tell you how disappointed I am in participating in this. I really won't support it, but it will not be because I think we have bad things that are going to, it's because this is one of the most unconscionable processes of government that I think I could ever support. Why in the world would we want to start making rules? Because that's the door we're opening right now. And I know some of you really think I'm out to lunch, and you're welcome to that thought. I really am not steeped in all the habits of this particular institution, and I'm not certain I will ever get there. But I have to tell you that this particular act of casting aside people that were hired and directed to do this, and they produce it, and then we cast it aside saying, well, we don't like it, so we're going to become the authority now. I'm sorry, I just have to share with you that I'm not encouraged as one of your new colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Representative. And I would just say that we aren't casting it aside. Representative Munson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to just comment on this nitrogen rule because I think that as a new representative, talking with farmers in the district, they are frustrated with obviously with government overreach, but there are so many practices out there today that are solving this problem, and it's hard to describe to people on the other side of the aisle that things can change without rules being in place, and that we are already making enormous leaps towards using less nitrogen because of the costs that are out there, because of practices and doing what's right. We don't all have the same soil type that Representative Johnson has. I have nitrates in my well. I have a contaminated well. But it's not because of leaching from the surface water. It's because my well was put in 1931 and it's failing. But so I have a reverse osmosis system in my house, and that's what my children drink through. And we know we have issues out there with nitrogen, but it's not always because of the nitrogen in the surface. We are making changes. But we just need to push back on the rulemaking and make sure that we do what's right with the information we have over time. I'm supporting this bill.
Thanks, Representative. Representative Bly.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I just think that comments ignore the science that we're seeing. I mean, I think the rulemaking is where it's at. When was the Groundwater Act passed, and how long have we researched and looked at this problem? And I think the science there tells us that the rule is necessary. And I don't deny that there are practices out there. I mentioned the water certification process that the Department of Ag has in place, and I think if farmers engaged in that, that would be a step forward without having to necessarily have government oversight. But I'll end it there.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions from members of the committee, all those in favor of the Ag Policy Bill of DE1 as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
The motion is adopted and the bill is on its way. Thanks, members. We have one other informational bill on the docket today. And it's a bill that I had introduced. House File 3487. And again, just informational. The reason for the bill was a bit of frustration last summer, driving around and seeing all of the noxious weeds on state highway right-of-ways and not being taken care of before they went to seed. And this was an attempt to, I guess, spur MnDOT a bit to take care of it on their right-of-ways, or if other landowners, adjacent landowners did take care of it, they would be reimbursed. Now, that creates a situation in its own right about how would you go about doing that. I realize that, but that was the reason for this legislation. I think Department of Ag folks are here to possibly talk about their role in the noxious weed management and the process to go through to take care of some of these issues. Mr. Freeze, if you could come down, I'd certainly appreciate it, and discuss the role that your department plays in noxious weeds along public areas in the state. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Gear Friso. I'm the director of the Plant Protection Division, at least for the next 37 days. So, pleasure to be here. The department doesn't have any direct regulatory authorities for the noxious weed law. That authority really rests with the counties or the townships. The current statute does provide authority for those entities, the county ag inspectors, to take action on all lands under their jurisdiction. It doesn't matter if it's private land or state-owned land or even federal land. So there is that in place. I think the difficulties we run into statewide is there's only about a third of the counties in Minnesota that have very strong or active weed programs. And in those counties or in those townships, we tend to have a very positive working relationship with other state agencies that own or manage land, and it's typically MnDOT and DNR, and so the process works very well. I think the biggest challenge we typically have is in those other two-thirds of counties where we have weaker local weed programs in place. We have, over the years, tried to work very hard to secure voluntary compliance with the weed law. Every year we contact the commissioners of MnDOT and DNR, trying to set up a communication process. When we become aware of a weed problem on state-owned land, Tony Cordelette, who's our weed supervisor, immediately contacts the agency involved. Our experience has been is that they've been extremely responsive when those situations occur. But again, unless we are informed about that situation, we don't do anything. There is a process in the statute that allows for county ag inspectors to take action on state land to do the control and then to bill the agency, and currently it's supposed to be with the approval of the Department of Agriculture. However, in the 20-plus years that I've been here, I'm not aware of any such claim being made by a county or a township for work on state-owned land. So, in a nutshell, that's how the process works.
Mr. Frizo, that's interesting. At one of the meetings this summer, a township person brought up that process of, I think they had done some weed removal and were thinking they were going to send you guys the bill. And I don't know if it happened or not, but if that situation were to play out, where would that funding come from to pay that bill back locally?
Well, I believe the statute calls for the state agency involved, their maintenance fund, that should be paying for that control work.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Bly.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I just wanted to praise your department for helping in a situation that I was working with in among a couple of townships. And I learned through the process of bringing together all of the agencies that have something to do with noxious weeds, from the Department of Public Health to the Department of Transportation and your department as well. And it's a complex issue. And in many cases, the problem is funding. And, do you know how many counties have a full-time ag inspector?
Mr. Prizo.
Mr. Chair, Representative Bly, by law, each county has to have a designated employee that is the county ag inspector representative, but in many times that's only in name only, so it can just be, a county clerk or something that really doesn't have any real function. I think there's only 2 or 3 counties that don't formally have a county ag inspector, but they do have a designated employee. But as I said earlier, there's only about a third of the counties that really have what I would call active functioning weed programs, and the rest are probably more based on a reactive, complaint-driven basis.
Follow-up, Representative?
Yeah, thank you. So that kind of management on the ground in the county really isn't there. I mean, it isn't functioning in a way that it ought to. Was there a time when it did? And is the problem funding? Is the problem, attention to these issues? I mean, one of the things that I was struck by testimony from various folks, and by the way, Anthony Coeur d'Alene was wonderful and continues to help in this effort. And as you said, he's very responsive and will come out and talk with us. But it seems as though we've ignored this problem and let it get out of hand. We put in place a grant program, but we didn't put any money into it until just recently. And those 2 townships put in for a grant and received some funding, which I think will help them get on their way to control the wild parsley in our area. But as your department reminded us, that's not the only noxious weed. And in many cases, those weeds have to be dealt with in different ways. And so even just mowing is not a solution to the problem. In fact, sometimes mowing can be part of the problem as we spread the plants from one area to another. So I guess I'm frustrated that we've allowed this situation to get as bad as it is. And it's going to take some money, I think, some funding, perhaps in your department and perhaps in other departments, or some way of filtering down to the counties and townships so they can take care of it. It's not right just to point the finger at different people and say you're not doing your job when they don't have the means to do that. Comment, if you would, please.
Yeah.
Mr. Prizo.
Mr. Chair, Representative Bly, as to the noxious weed law is actually one of the oldest statutes that we have in the Department of Agriculture. It was originally put in place to protect agriculture from noxious weeds. Originally, things like Canada thistle, some of the other thistles were the primary targets. We suffered over the years as when we went through periods of budget cuts. Typically, the weed programs was one of the first to go, both at the state level and at the local level. The state lost its enforcement authority, probably about 10 years ago. That sort of took us out of the regulatory frame. So and since that time, when we lost that regulatory authority, we lost the majority of the funding at the state level. I think it was about $350,000. We've maintained 1 FTE since that time, and then I was very encouraged last year. The legislature did provide some additional funding for us for an additional position. We also received some funding for the weed grant program that's been extremely well received across the state. I think one of the things that really focused attention has been, I hate to say it, but Palmer Amaranth introduced to the state. And I think that really sort of focus people's attention how important having a strong weed program is, having our ability to be able to respond aggressively and strongly when we have those kinds of weed threats in Minnesota.
We have somebody from MnDOT here. I appreciate them stopping over. Tina Markison. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Salk had a comment first. Question for Mr. Frieso?
Why don't we go ahead with their statement? Because mine is more general relative to the whole problem.
Okay, Ms. Markison, good morning and welcome to the committee, and thanks for stopping over.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I'd like to thank the opportunity to speak on this bill. At the last hearing last Tuesday, Nancy Daubenberger presented on this as well, and we have some serious concerns about this bill. The bill as introduced would require MnDOT to pay those who come onto state right-of-way for the control and eradication of weeds that are on our right-of-way. In order for adjacent landowners to apply any herbicides on our trunk highway system or on our right-of-way, they would have to be licensed as a commercial applicator, in addition to any of the licensed applications or licensures that they already hold for applying to their private entities. As part of that, the statute that deals with being able to spray on somebody else's land, they would also have to submit reports to the landowner about what they sprayed, when they sprayed, and who sprayed it. It would be more financially effective for MnDOT if we could just take care of the use our maintenance forces to take care of the weeds themselves. Understanding that there are a lot of weeds across the state of Minnesota. MnDOT manages about 175,000 acres of green space across the state of Minnesota. The bill, as it sits right now, doesn't require the adjacent landowner to ask MnDOT before going onto our property to control those weeds. There's already a system in place, as outlined by Mr. Frieso, that already, if there is a problem on your neighboring land, say it's not even the state of Minnesota, that if there's a problem on neighboring land, that you can talk to your township or county ag inspector and start that process rolling. And that's what we've dealt with in the past as far as if there's been a complaint about any weeds on our property.
Thank you.
Any questions?
But I've said the problem with that system that we all have is by the time we go through the system, the weeds have gone to seed. And I've said that 100 times down here, I think. Any other questions, comments? Representative Salk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comment is going to go back to what I think we're hearing as core triggers of how we got to where we are. And a common thing across that is the program disappeared. It was robust during a time that we needed it. And then we've gone through life and by various judgments, whether local judgments at the very local level like townships, then up to counties and that sort of thing, going through the whole stream of authority, we've decided that we don't need that. We don't want to spend that money. Well, today's a day of reckoning. You're being asked, I guess from the chair's amendment, but mostly from the discussion that was brought to us, to solve this issue of pervasive weeds. How many of us think in any consciousness at all that we're going to do that without a system and funding for it to happen? We cannot have the Wild West where I get up in the morning and I think, oh, geez, I hate my neighbor's mustard they have and also dandelions. So I'm going to go out there and just start spraying them. Well, that's the world that has been proposed here, is a person gets up, says, oh, that ditch has that set of weeds out there, so I'm going to go out there and spray it, and then I'll let them know that I'm going to charge them some money for it. That's not a system that we can use in civilized society. We have to get a system in effect if we're going to solve this. Otherwise, let's quit a fantasy. We're not solving it. This won't get solved. I used to live out there, folks. You know, yeah, I'm a dumb city kid that doesn't know anything more. I get it. I used to be spraying this stuff, spot spraying, the appropriate stuff for the appropriate weed. I grew up that way, It hasn't changed a bunch, it's just different weeds. We have to fund a system. I mean, she just said they can't randomly be observing their acreage. We could certainly be the people that tell them, you know, I'm at mile 16 and there's a raving bunch of weeds out here. They're your responsibility to take care of. Notify the county shed or the local district, and we can make them have the duty of doing it and expect that they have to have funding to do it. So I'll get off this horse, but I think we're playing around in a fantasy world unless we actually decide to put something in effect that solves this. And the cowboys are not going to be our solution. I'm sorry if there was any disrespect in that, Mr. Chair.
I didn't take too much disrespect. Just a little bit. Ms. Marcus, just a quick question. This bill's not going anyplace, by the way. But does MnDOT have a system or a routine where somebody, you know, would kind of drive around the district or the county or whatever? Because I think those of us that drive around, and for me, it's between here and back home again, and see these big, huge thistle patches going to seed, it's like, yeah, I guess I never thought about that. I should have stopped and called in thinking that somebody from MnDOT's going to drive by and see this. What is the rationale for checking up on stuff like that, Ms. Marcus?
Mr. Chair and committee, we've got in the 8 districts that MnDOT has, our maintenance districts, we have somewhat of eight different ways that it happens. But in each district, there are licensed herbicide applicators. And in the summer, their job is to apply herbicides out on our roadsides to those weed patches. We're not able to control all of them every single year, and so we've established some priorities to which weeds are we going to go after with the resources that we have. Are we going to, you know, if you're a farmer and you are actively controlling a weed on your property and you see that it keeps creeping back off of the right-of-way, when you contact us, that increases the priority of that weed patch because we know that it's causing harm to off right away, and somebody else is controlling it off right away as well. We're going to go after the really bad new weeds that we know that we can make a difference on. The Grecian foxglove that popped up in Washington County, we went after that one right away, and the population has greatly declined on MnDOT's roadside. Working with Department of Agriculture to make sure that the Palmer amaranth does not move along our roadsides, and making sure, so that's a really high priority. And so we do set up priorities of the different weeds as far as where they are, where they're located, and what they are, and what's the damage that could be done long term. But you know, if you call in, either your county ag inspector or just you personally, you call into MnDOT and say, hey, I've been noticing this weed patch on this road near this interchange, you know, you guys can do something about it. That increases the priority of that weed patch as well.
Now, in your discussions here, you've mentioned spraying and haven't mentioned mowing or cutting weeds. And I realize MnDOT is kind of caught between a rock and a hard place here on cutting dates and things like that. But if you see noxious weeds before August 1st, is cutting an option, or is that something you don't do?
Mr. Chair and Committee, yes, that is an option. In the state mowing law, there is a provision that says that we are allowed to mow anytime for noxious weeds, and so we can mow as well. We like to use as best as we can, use an integrated approach. For some of the weeds out there, we use biological agents, little insects that eat the plants that are the really bad ones, and so we try to limit the amount of herbicide application we do to those type of plants. We also use mowing. We use prescribed fire. We have a prescribed fire program at MnDOT where we're able to use that as well. And then also planting more native plants so that we can establish these native prairies, or native plantings, so that just that in itself limits the amount of weeds that are coming in. So we use an integrated approach. We do use herbicides as part of that approach.
Okay, thank you. Representative Salk?
Thank you. Just one added thing that in my passion, I wanted to make certain I included that everybody's responsibility has to come to bear, and this includes interested parties that would maybe be concerned about spraying and/or physical destruction of these areas. We've got other interested parties. Everybody wants to have a say as to what goes on in a ditch, but everybody's going to have to give up something. And that way we get the best impact for all of us to live together and to recognize that.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Ms. Markuson. With that, the meeting is adjourned.